there is like such beautiful, magical co-creation that gets to happen when we all decide to be in one space together.
Yeah.
It's not random. We have all called each other forward because there's always going to be something in each other that's going to activate something within us. So you crying, or you not being, or you bringing your fears, or you bringing your mess, or you bringing you in that moment that you're in is going to be healing for the entire circle. And the healing cannot happen the same way without you there. So it's beautiful and it's perfect, and it's the reason why you belong. We don't belong just in the perfect. It's in all of it, in your loudness, in your silence. We're always going to represent a part of each other that's going to be called for. And that's the beauty of healing together.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen. Here you'll get to eavesdrop on connected women's conversations about self-love, confidence, healing, relationships, creativity, and more. I'm your host, 𝘚𝘰𝘶, and I am your guide to getting you grounded into your body, feeling your full spectrum of emotion, and expanding your fullest self-expression. I also pop in here from time to time with solo episodes where I give you tips, tricks, and resources like meditations, visualizations, and all the things to get you grounded, to get you to feel, to get you to alchemize, and to get you to expand and express yourself fully. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I invite you to now put your hands on your heart, take a deep breath, set a tone for how you want to be as you show up for this podcast. Take what resonates in this podcast, leave out what doesn't resonate, and take some time to reflect and to contemplate. And if there's anything in the podcast you want to chat about, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at @selfexpressbabe. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get started. Hello, welcome to another episode of Openly Spoken. I just got off of this beautiful, wonderful call with Beatriz Soto. I am so excited to share this with you. We actually went into our call together without a set topic, and we just kind of started chatting and seeing what was alive in us. And then I was like, we could have recorded all of this. Let's hit record. And we took a lot of beautiful spirals in this conversation, and it all beautifully went down to this one core of presence, surrender, and love, and how we can use those three things to feel into the knowing that we belong everywhere. We belong in every room that we step into, and everything that comes up within us belongs, whether it's joy, whether it's sadness, whether it's bliss or anger. It all belongs. Everything belongs. It's all one, and all of that beautiful, all that beautiful stuff. That's kind of the central core and piece to all of this. And so I love how this is like an organic conversation. So go ahead and grab something cozy to drink, something cozy to wear, and you get to eavesdrop on a conversation with two aligned sisters. And I'm going to introduce you a little bit more to Beatriz before we start. So Beatriz brings her gifts into the world as a modern medicine woman through soul purpose, wealth generation, and being an inner wisdom activator. She says that she is a sparkle of deep joy, and I totally second that. And that she brings a playful, spicy, and sweet holy wisdom to the world. I totally second that as well. I'm like smiling as I record this. And Beatriz's mission is to remind you of your freedom, your love, your expression, your soul remembrance, and your heart liberation. I'm so excited and grateful that you're here listening to this episode. If you haven't already, Please subscribe to the podcast. Let us know how you liked this episode. If you enjoy it, go ahead and share it on your socials and tag me at @selfexpressedbabe. There are also links in the show notes for you to find Beatriz, for you to find her Instagram and her website. And on her website, she has some free meditations. So I would run, not walk to that link. And if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. And yeah, let's get ready to dive right in, get yourself cozy. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Yeah. And you know, one of the reasons why I didn't want to put like a title or like a subject, it's because I feel like something that's keeping us in the struggle of flowing in life and really just the understanding of the subtleties of everything is because we keep separating everything and we keep compartmentalizing everything. Like, this is that, and that is that, and self-love is this, and money is that, and business is that. And it's like everything is a part of everything. So if we were to just put a title on what we're going to talk about today or what wants to come through today, then we're separating everything that gets to come with it. Because everything gets to come with it, because life is like that, right? It's messy and it's all of it at the same time, and it's freaking overwhelming. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
That makes me think of this one book that Chelsea recommended in Medicine Muse, which was Busting Loose from the Money Game. Of someone calling me. Busting Loose from the Money Game, and it was technically, oh, you have it right next to you. What?
Yeah.
What?
I'm reading it
crazy.
Too. Yeah.
Crazy. But I love how it's like labeled as a mindset, as a money mindset book, but it's, in my opinion, a book about how everything works. It's an embodiment book too. Like, the word embodiment isn't in that book at all, but it's an embodiment book.
Right. And that's also what I really love about, I kind of feel like something that's been really showing up for me is this, like I told you, when I ever travel to Mexico, or when I ever travel to these places that hold so much energetics around the spiritual community, and where everybody's at, and where everybody's doing their work, and where everybody, like, where the spiritual community just gets together and amplifies this kind of energy. For me, there's a certain level of illusion that gets amplified in what we see in these spaces, or what we think these spaces are about. And for me, this book is also very much about that. It's about the illusions and shedding those illusions, and really coming to that place of what's true for you. Right? I haven't even gotten to half of the book. So I'm missing like the juiciest part, but yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
That book, I feel like, really, as I was reading it, I feel like it really plugged me into the present moment, because it talks about how, like, your consciousness is creating everything that you see, every blade of grass. Like, I remember while I was reading it, I took a break and I went for a walk, and like, I didn't need music or a podcast in my ears, or I don't even think I took my phone, and I was just walking around in wonder, like, oh, my consciousness made these clouds and this dog walking by, and like, I was just like amazed by everything around me.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you mentioned presence, because as I was getting ready to sit here and co-create with you, one of the things that, like, when I thought, okay, what are we going to talk about? One of the things that came through for me was how I feel such at peace in my life, and how everything just keeps coming in the easiest way, because I've been more present than ever, without judging anything that happens, just witnessing in me. It's like I remember I was recently in Turkey, in Cappadocia, this amazing, I think it's a town. I'm going to say town. Sorry for my ignorance, but it's small. But I was walking through these streets and it literally felt, I'm usually those kind of people that have no orientation skills. So I can get lost around the corner of my own home. But I got lost in these streets and it literally felt as if Google Maps was just showing me a way and the streets got closed off and it's like, not this way. And then another street got closed off and I was completely lost using Google Maps. So I put it down and I'm like, I'm just going to follow the streets to see where they lead me. And I'm going to be completely present in this moment and just let the streets lead me and take me where they want to take me, without the mind being like, I need to be somewhere else, or I need to be doing this, or so I just completely let go. And I started just experiencing so much aliveness. And I experienced, the chanting of the prayer through the speakerphone or the megaphone on the church. And I found these beautiful stores that I went in and just got really caught up in the artistry of the handcraft and of the people. And it just felt magical. And I feel like if we let go of that resistance of, we're meant to go here and we're called to go this way, without having the mind pull us to what should be or what I know or what, that is when we get to experience that peace of experiencing the beauty and the artistry and the magic of life, I feel.
So true. And like allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up in that moment. Because I remember you posting about that on your Instagram. And you were sharing how a little part of you like was a little scared because you're like, oh, is this safe? And you were kind of like reminded about the neighborhoods that you grew up in and stuff like that. So I'd love to know like what happens for you in the present moment when you felt that fear. Like, how did you hold it and continue to keep your eyes open to the magic around you?
I love that question. I feel like, okay, something happened before this event. This is the beauty of being present. It's a combination of everything that culminated into that moment. It wasn't just that moment. From the moment that we got into that Airbnb, I was sharing that Airbnb with 2 more people. And I was the only one who kept, every time we would leave somewhere, I would close my bag and I would lock it. And I would really make sure, that the house was locked, and I would really make sure that the key was hidden. I was the only one who was worrying about this because I had that in my system.
Yeah.
And so the 2 other people that I was sharing the home with were like, relax, nothing's going to happen. We're good. We're in like the safest place that we could ever be in. And I'm like, you don't know this place. How do you know that? How there's no previous experience that would lead you to that, but just that belief, like we were talking before, we have that power to really decide what comes into our field and what doesn't, which is what you were talking about. Our consciousness keeps creating the reality. So if I'm in that state of nothing's going to happen, and I started just letting my mind kind of slowly unplug from the memories of unsafety. And I decided, okay, I said, you know what? This is the day I start to surrender. And I left my bag open. And I'm like, okay. And I went on. And sometimes my mind would take me back to the bag. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And if something were to happen, then spirit fucking lead me to where I need to be led, because then there's something there for me to learn. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was that first lesson that came through the people who lived with me. And then there was another moment I experienced. I don't know if you know David Lyon, but he was in the retreat that I was at, that we were co-creating. And he did this hypnosis, workshop. I'm going to say it for the lack of a better word, but he did hypnosis on all of us. And he kind of started tuning into who was, feeling ready to really be completely, taken to the depth of what hypnosis is. And I remember the first exercise that he did was just like make us put our fingers together like this. And he just started giving us instructions, like slowly your fingers are going to start to come closer, and you're going to feel like there's like they're pulling towards each other. And I remember I didn't feel that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not. My fingers are very separate from each other. And then he came by and he started like creating a little knot around them and pulling like an energetic string. And they started coming together. And I realized at that moment, he said something, and he said, it was something around, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember very well, but it was something around, let this be something you feel. You know, like let this be something that your body leads you to. Let your body feel this experience. And at that moment, I let my mind go, and my fingers started coming together because it felt like that. So it was the moment that I released that piece of resistance that my mind was creating that I started to feel the pull.
Yeah.
And so again, it was a surrender, let the mind go from the belief that that's not happening. Let your body be the one who feels and guides. And so when I was walking through those dark streets, at first it was my mind taking me to those past experiences, and my mind was activating my body into the fight or flight. Yeah. But when I remembered, I'm going to surrender because I have that full power and knowledge that nothing is going to hurt me because I claim that it is so, and therefore it is so. And I just started walking, and I was led by the magic of whatever happened afterwards. And it led to the most amazing story that I could have written in that moment.
Yeah. I love that. It's so fun to surrender and allow yourself to walk through life, or even a physical city. I used to live in New York City, and I lived in Brooklyn, and I would take the train to Manhattan on my days off, and I would just like walk. And if I was walking straight and the crosswalk was red, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn this way. Like I would allow the city to guide me. And similar to you, I remember I would think about like, oh, isn't New York dangerous? Like, isn't it possible, like turn a corner and something bad will happen? And really, like with being present, I feel like being present is like the ultimate protection, because you can sense, and like you can sense when something, like you can sense when you're like, all right, I need to cross the street because something over here, I don't know what it is, but my body feels it. You know, it's definitely a body sensation thing, the intuition.
Exactly.
And it's such a fun way to discover new things, you know. And in my opinion, like in doing that, I remember I would discover like a basket weaving store where all the things are made by hand, or like a crystal shop, and I would just be like, wow, I just ended up here. Like out of all places, the city led me here to a place of something that I'm like interested in. Like I didn't end up in a finance bookstore, you know? Like right. I ended up being somewhere that's like aligned with me, and like a part of our journeys when we're in these journeys of just like expanding, liberating ourselves, opening up to love, all the things, self-development, and having a positive impact on the world. It's like every little breadcrumb leads to like a whole loaf of bread, I guess, to follow the breadcrumb thing.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. I love that you shared that, because that's exactly it. It's what you said. It's the energy that leads you, and it's the body without the mental fears or tricks saying, don't do this because this or that, or, you know, the fear creeping in or whatever may come in from the mind. But when you're really present and you can really feel your body, you'll feel that energetic pull towards, you know, what's meant for you and what's calling you to that next experience that you really are eager to experience. You maybe just don't know it yet because you're suppressing it with so many shoulds and woulds and shoulda, coulda, woulda.
And that's a big piece too. Like, we are conditioned to operate as if we're mental beings, when there's so many different like pieces to what it is to be human. And the mental side and the thinking and even like the doing, like, let me just think and do things and be busy, that like disconnects us from feeling, essentially, from feeling, from surrendering. My cat keeps jumping up and
I love it.
She wants pets, but I can't touch her because I just put flea medication on her neck. So I can't touch her. So poor thing, she's like, please touch me. I know.
Maybe with a feather or something.
I know touch is your love language.
She wants to be with us. We need to see what cat medicine is.
We gave her a bath yesterday and she absolutely hated it.
Isn't it that they hate water?
Yeah, like she hates water. I don't think all cats hate water, but I take her outside, so she got fleas and she needed a bath. But anyways.
Yeah, but I really love that we make her a part of this, and that we don't have that resistance of let's push her off, because this is part of integrating everything, right? Because I am the kind of human or people or whatever entity that loves to, it's either I make sense of, like, I try to bring sense of everything or nothing at the same time. It's like everything is important, but at the same time nothing is important.
That's
so it's
true.
Like right, it's like everything is important to the detail of, I love that your cat is walking around feeling our energy and wanting to be part of this, because then I go to, okay, what is cat medicine and what does the cat represent? And then I want to bring that forward, because it's part of the energy that's moving through us. And it's like, she's part of our creation in the world. So what is she here to say? Or, I really love bringing all these pieces. Like we create this resistance and this shame or guilt or whatever when we want to push that off. And it's like, no, get out of here. We're recording a podcast. And it's like, she's part of the world. She's part of us. It all gets to blend and merge.
Yeah. I think that's like the difference between surrender and control, and with the control piece, there's kind of that little flavor of perfectionism. And I definitely used to live there. And on things like even this podcast, like I remember in the beginning of my podcasting journey, like I would prepare what I was going to ask ahead of time. I would send it to my guests and be like, this is what I'm going to ask you. And it was very much like we would talk about a question and then I would break the eye contact, look at my next question. And it was just like, there was no flow there. And with things like my cat, or like even on client calls, if like I got a knock on the door because there's a package, like it's no problem to get up and get it real quick. Whereas before it's like, oh, I can't do that. Like just that surrender and allowing of everything to be able to exist and not judging it.
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned this, because this weekend I spent a lot of time surrounded by children. And again, in the presence, and being present and really noticing everything, I get to see these patterns, right? So I noticed that children, they really just move with the energy that's alive in them, and they move towards the excitement. What's exciting for me at this moment? And they move through that. And then I saw the parents like coming in and just grabbing the child and bringing the child back to where it should be. And then the child would run back to that, and it's like bringing it back, and it kept having that back and forth. So there was no allowing of that full cycle of let the child move through this energy of excitement, let it like experience whatever. Once you experience that, once the child experiences that and just moves through that pathway, it will have experienced it, navigated it, and there will be nothing new in that place. So it will continuously look for something exciting and new. So that path will be already done. So just let it you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also I was trying to like put a baby to sleep, and I saw that the baby was so tired and was just like hitting his face like, I'm so tired, but the body was resisting the falling asleep. And it was just that resistance that kept causing the struggle and the suffering. And it's like,
so interesting how we do that as babies, like from the beginning.
Right. It's like, why, you know, it's like, it's the resistance that puts us in the struggling, that maybe it's not even necessary. And then also I was talking to my mom, and she's like, I'm thinking about what to do. Should I write? Should I create jewelry? Should I go out and do something with, and I'm like, what excites you the most right now? Because I remember the childlike energy, like remember to go back to that innocence of follow your excitement. I promise it will lead you to exactly what you're looking for. And then it will be more in the next level and the next level. But because we're always suppressing and repressing that because of all the shoulds, then we're always frustrated because we've never navigated the excitement that we really want to experience and are curious about.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why it's hard to decide what to do when you're thinking like how your mom, when you're thinking of like, should I do jewelry? Should I write? Should I do this? Because I think a part of that resistance is like, whatever I pick now is what I have to do forever. You know, but if you can have that surrender, if you can have that surrender, then you can allow like whatever you choose, whatever excites you now, like you said, it will always lead you to the next thing. Always. Like from my personal example, my throat is
opening up.
Something energetically here.
It's opening up. What does she want to say?
From my experience, like something that always excited me as a kid was like drawing and art, and I followed that to college studying fashion design. That's what my degree is, and I'm not using that degree at all, but it's totally okay because working in the fashion industry led me to yoga, because I'm like, oh, I'm stressed, yoga is great for stress. And then like yoga completely changed my life, had a huge spiritual awakening, and like my whole life, like when I see like, all right, I followed this, and like it always led to something that like I couldn't have planned for. You really can't plan for these things. No, exactly. Yeah. And I love that you shared that, because it happens a lot when I look back, when I follow back the steps that I took to be here. I'm like, I would have never in a million years chosen to live where I live. And the most interesting thing is that I grew up in Ecuador, which is like all of this culture of the Indians and the Amazonians, and very close to Peru, and all that natural, real, deep, ancient wisdom. But I was in another place in my life. Of course, I was a child, I was a teenager, I was going through other things. but then I had to come to like Stockholm, so far away, to really go back to my roots and rediscover that wisdom here. Because it wasn't about where I was living or what was around me. It was discovering it within me, because I felt so separated from everything outside of me. And it's like, I would have never planned that. Yeah. What did you dream of doing when you were that age, growing up in Ecuador? I knew I wanted to work with people, and I always liked singing. Singing has been like a passion of mine. So I was in between singing and psychology, and I decided for psychology. And then just psychology led me to human resources and the corporate world, and then one thing led to another. And again, like you say, a couple of years in a big company, I'm done. This is not my life. This is not for me. This is not what I'm here for. I need to unplug from these completely. And I traveled all across the world to Australia, where I met my husband, and then came here. So it's like,
I couldn't have planned it. If I would have
Yeah.
planned it, it wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's the thing. There's always bigger plans, and like whatever happens is for our highest good. And we're always like supported to open up more, as long as we have that piece of surrender,
Mm,
because
mm,
I even see
mm,
in people that I love in my family, there's that resistance to surrendering and the holding
mm,
on to control. Like the control contracts you and like
mm.
closes your vision, and like you just see your problem right here, and
Right.
like you need that perspective of, we live on a rock spinning around a ball of fire. Like we're so
Mm,
small. Our problems, yes, our feelings are valid, but our problems are so tiny when you can really take a step back and see like what's actually true.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that has helped me, that perspective, that like higher vision has helped me to always be this positive, happy,
Mhm.
like being in a happy state, or in a
Yeah,
positive state.
same.
That doesn't mean that I don't suffer, that I don't have pain, that I don't experience darkness, or that I don't experience, my shadows. That doesn't mean that, but it means that even in that moment, I hold that higher vision for myself, and I hold that higher power of remembering who I am in spite of that. And I feel
Mhm.
like when we talk about surrender, something that's really important for me in allowing myself to surrender is that deep trust in myself.
Mhm.
Because even though we're all in this together, and I feel super held, and I have a beautiful like family holding me, and like a beautiful net holding me and supporting me, at the end of the day, I am the one who makes the decisions. And at the end of the day, I am the one who chooses. And if I'm certain, and I have that trust in myself, then whatever happens in that process of surrendering, I know it's temporary. I know it's for a cause. I know it's going to lead me to something better. I know,
Mhm.
but I've had to keep that trust that it's all okay, and
Mhm.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
Mm,
so beautiful.
mm,
Are there any things that like you had to do to be more comfortable with that? Because like you mentioned in the post that we talked about earlier, where in your city streets where you grew up, that it wasn't always so safe. So I'm sure there were some pieces in your nervous system that maybe grew up not being used to surrendering, but then in your
mm.
life you eventually learned the surrendering. How did that start to happen for you? Like what was that like little entry point for
Whoa.
you?
um, hmm. I love this question because again, it's for me, it's it's like the compounding of everything. Um, I can't say I can pinpoint that one moment where I'm like, boom, I'm confident. But I will say that I always share this. For me, Sweden and my experience here has been the biggest challenge and the biggest gift that I could have been given from life, to
Mhm.
put me in a place where I was so confused about who am I, what am I doing here. I don't understand the language. I don't understand people. People don't understand me. I am this being who behaves completely different from what everybody is used to, and I don't want to bring myself down because that's what I'm healing. So it's like i
Mhm.
was i was put back in a position where I had to face all of my childhood wounds, but as a
Mm.
grown woman that's been moving through self-development and through self-love. And
Oh, I have
it
chills on my
so
body.
so it was like the ultimate, teaching, where I remember I had my Akashic records read one year or the second year I was here, and I'm like, am I meant to be here? I don't think I want to live here. And the woman said to me, you will never feel at home unless you come home to you. Like, you need to build your home here. Otherwise, anywhere will not feel at home. Like, you won't find that anywhere. And so I remembered, like, okay, there's no sunlight. Bring the sun within myself. What is it that I like? Why am I separating myself from the people? Why am I bringing myself to be misunderstood? Like, again, it's these stories that we create of who we are. So I had to like reinvent myself from a place of what really brings me home. And so I hired my first ever coach, and I started creating workshops. I had no idea what I was doing, and I would just sit there in a room full of women completely trusting me, and I was like, let's do this, baby. Like, I chose this, you know. And again, that trust in myself. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm surrendering to whatever is happening, but I trust that what I'm going to give you is going to be potent and powerful, because I know. So it's that trust and that knowing that just starts slowly creating the experiences and creating, kind of rebuilding your experiences of trust and confidence between yourself and your relationship with people, and yourself and your relationship with the work that you do, and yourself and your relationship with money. So it was like recreating my experiences with everything from zero.
Yeah. I love that. I love that little emphasis at the end there with like that everything is essentially about relationships. Everything really is. It's all relationships. And I think that's a very important piece to look at when we are kind of like oriented on a goal, to see, like, instead of focusing on I'm going to make X amount of money this month, is like peeling the layer back and realizing like it's all about relationships. So if I do want to make X amount of money this month, what are the connections to put in place? Where is that, like, where can I give love? Where can I be in connection with other people? Because that's where it's going to come from. And making that, I think making that the focus can also, like you said, bring up, like, you'll end up in a space where you have to face all your childhood wounds, because our parents are our very first relationships. So if there's something there that's unresolved, we're going to project that into our relationships with everything, with money, with people, with how we clean our home, like with absolutely everything. And it's such a freeing experience to, as an adult, go back and kind of like do some clearing on it, you know, because when we're kids, we don't understand like, for example, let's say you mentioned that you liked singing. Let's say when you were a teenager, or maybe even 10, let's say you had like a singing performance at your school, and your mom couldn't come because a family member ended up in the hospital, and like she was there, but like a 10-year-old would make it mean, oh, mom didn't come, she doesn't love me. And then when you're an adult, you can go back to those experiences and be like, this is what actually happened. And it kind of just like, it kind of like takes that those blinders off, and you're like, whoa. I had no idea. And it like changes everything in like a snap.
And I love that you mentioned that, because as I move through and start peeling some layers, and I discover these layers, I have this beautiful relationship with my parents and my sister, and we really love to talk about these things. So sometimes I go back and I ask them, like, was it this way that happened? Am I remembering? And they're like, no, that was not, those are not facts. And I'm like, all right, good to know. It was like a complete story that I had made. And it's super interesting how our mind just like, when there's a hole, or a gap. It just like starts creating a connection just to make sense of something. And it's like, yeah, no, that wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
But also something very beautiful as you were talking about, you know, the process of healing those relationships. Something that was very beautiful that has helped me heal my relationship with a partner, because when I met my husband, I had recently kind of fled what was what a toxic relationship, like it was for me, a toxic relationship, and I had like fled it. And I met him and I started this relationship thinking that I was completely clear of all those patterns. And he had to deal with the whole process of me unplugging from those patterns and reconnecting to new patterns. And it was super challenging, and it was super scary, and it was chaotic, and it was messy. But the fact that he always held our relationship with so much trust and love, and just the deep knowing that it's us for life, like this is us and I got you. And yes, you need to be careful with what you say and what you do, but love, when you hold your process, when you hold your journey with love and compassion, then anything in between gets to happen, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And it can be chaotic, it can be messy, but it's going to be wonderful at the end when you get to the plugging into the new kind of energy. But love is key in this journey for ourselves.
We love your husband here.
Me too.
And that's such a beautiful example of how we can also like heal through relationships. I have a similar like I resonate with that a little bit as well, because my husband as well like just holds whatever is there. And it's especially important when they've gone through their own stuff as well, and maybe have a little bit more emotional intelligence, or like they just get it. They're like, yeah, I've been through this too, you'll be fine, I'm here for you, like whatever you need. And yeah, it's very, very healing to receive that, because that's what unconditional love is. It's like it's the message of like, you belong here, no matter what, you belong here. And like with what you were saying even before, with being in Sweden and separating yourself from the other people because it's just a new culture, it's different, that's the other like kind of message of I don't belong here. But really, when we can come to a space of surrender, we can realize the truth that like we belong in every room that we walk into. We belong in every country that we visit. We belong on every street or sidewalk we walk down. We belong everywhere because we're here, we're alive, we exist.
Right.
We wouldn't be here otherwise. You know?
I love that. Yeah. I'm just feeling it. Yeah. We do.
And even my mind is going a little deeper with it, like, you know, we belong here because like all the elements that make up our body, you know, the calcium, the whatever other chemicals make up our body, like
water.
Water, exactly.
All
of those things have existed since the beginning of the universe. Like even this water in my cup is like eons old, like because it just keeps recycling and recycling. It's the same with our bodies, with the matter that makes up our bodies, with our souls. It just like we're meant to be here because we're a part of the whole, and we always have been.
And I love that you said that, because one of the things that keeps coming back whenever I hold a circle with women or retreats, there's always someone who feels a little less belonging or less worthy of being, or less. And there's always someone coming saying like, I don't feel worthy of being here because I see everybody so embodied and I feel so behind, or I feel like everybody's so progressed in their journey and here I am being a mess and crying about everything. Or I feel the fear of speaking what I have to say because I don't think it's going to resonate with the group. But in that belonging that you mentioned, there's a simplicity that I feel like I want to just remind everybody that is about, there is like such beautiful magical co-creation that gets to happen when we all decide to be in one space together. It's not random. We have all called each other forward because there's always going to be something in each other that's going to activate something within us. So you crying, or you not being, or you bringing your fears, or you bringing your mess, or you bringing you in that moment that you're in, is going to be healing for the entire circle. And the healing cannot happen the same way without you there. So it's beautiful and it's perfect, and it's the reason why you belong. We don't belong just in the perfect healing. Here I am, I'm going to give you love and healing and all the things. It's in all of it, in your loudness, in your silence. We're always going to represent a part of each other that's going to be called for. And that's the beauty of healing together. And creating these circles and these retreats and these moments where we really go deep into healing together, because that's what we do. In you healing your wound, I get to ungrave, is that what you say? Mine, and bring it up and heal it along.
And that's like the ultimate rebellion, because everything in the modern world in media like tells us we only belong if we look a certain way, if we have a certain job, if we have a certain income. So it's and also it like separates people from each other. So it's the ultimate rebellion to come into this space of like, we belong and we're going to come together and we're going to create unity. And I think that's really what's going to catapult the collective to, like, when I see like the work that's happening, like even in our conversation together, gosh, my throat chakra, even in our conversation here, our conversation that we had a few months ago, that was such a beautiful call. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And
it was
like,
my pleasure.
Yeah. And like the spaces that we get to be in, like when I just see like what's happening in like real time and I think about the future, I'm just like, oh my God.
Right?
Like, wow, I'm like really excited to bring children into this world. Whereas like before this work, like everything exists, you know, in duality. And like before doing this kind of work, like my focus was more on like war and violence and all these bad things, which still exist, but the opposite exists as well, you know, and we kind of need the dark to feel everything, to feel all of it. And yeah, I mean, yes, of course, there's things happening in the world that I wished it weren't happening and didn't agree with, but with all of this work that's happening, like even like the whole divine feminine energetics being like the biggest it's been in the last, I don't know how many years, but here where I live in America in the 70s, like women could not have their own credit card. And what's happening in Iran, and like there's just so much insanity and oppression happening with women, and it's just like seeing the work that we get to do and the spaces we get to be in just makes me very excited for what's to come. And I forget why I brought this up.
But I love that you said that, because you were talking about how we were talking about belonging and how for us belonging and being part of, we need to look a certain way or be a certain way, or everything needs to be perfect. And I love that you mentioned that, because that also gets to belong. And that gets to be part of the reason why we are shining brighter. That gets to be everything, all of this darkness that wants to come to light. If I would feel more disappointed if we weren't talking about these things, or if these things, not that they weren't happening, but that we're able to see them now. Yeah. That we're able to see them and recognize them and be like, oh shit, this is happening, this is real, because they're coming to light. And I'm excited about that. If they weren't coming to light, we wouldn't be able to notice them and know that there's something there to heal and liberate and shed light to. So it gets to belong for us to do the work.
Yeah. And another thing that this sentence of "I belong here" brings to mind in accordance to womanhood is like, again, the whole piece of like making women second or less than. And in my household, my mom remarried when I was 3, and my stepdad is from Pakistan, and his family is like super religious Muslim. He's not religious, he doesn't follow it. That's actually why he doesn't live there. But with his family being a part of my life and my childhood, like I really got that message of like, women are second, like do everything for the man. And like when you're 12 or 11 or whatever age, cover up your whole body because men can't control themselves. And there was really a separation of like what men are allowed to do versus what women are allowed to do. And that exists almost everywhere. So when we can come to that place of like, I belong, no matter what my gender identity is, even for people who are gay or transgender, like that wound of I belong, I can't comprehend it because I haven't gone through that, but like I can only imagine. Like I feel that heaviness. You know?
Yeah. And I love that you brought this up, because I don't remember who we were talking about this with, but I kind of feel like I have no idea what happens for someone to decide to go through that process. But I kind of feel like there's just, again, this some sort of resistance within. And then when you finally find that alignment between who you express yourself to be and who you feel yourself to be, and you really find that alignment, then your state of being is much more wealthier, and it's much more happier, and it's much more liberated. And that's the whole point of like, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Like we want people who are embodied in whatever they're feeling and really living in integrity with who they feel to be, because when we align that, that's when we bring the clear channel of everything, of love, of wealth, of truth, of God, of everything. And it's like, let us find that alignment in whatever way we want to find it, you know, like, let us be happy people.
Yeah, we all have those different paths. And I think that's a big piece that I had to learn, because in the beginning of my journey, when like yoga and breath work really opened me up, there definitely was this part of me that would judge people that wouldn't do yoga, you know, because I thought like, this is the only way to be a good person, if you do yoga and if you're woke. And you know, it's like such a interesting thing to like come into awareness, but then you're still like judging other people who from your perspective don't seem like they're aware, when you have no idea what's going on in them. So it's like it's this it's really silly being a human.
It's really silly. It's
pretty
hilarious.
Funny.
It's hilarious, especially when you're in like getting into spirituality and the conscious world and being woke. And it's like you just like start experiencing like a parallel reality. It's like the humans who are not and the humans who are, and it's just this parallel reality. And it's just, it's hilarious because even within this community, you judge someone. Ugh,
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. But we have to be able to laugh at it. We have to be able to laugh at it. Yeah. We have to stop making everything so serious. Yeah.
And have that childlike mind, like that, like with earlier how you mentioned you spent time around children this weekend. Children honestly are like the best teachers. For me, they've been like the best teachers. I used to work in a daycare, and it's just so magical to see how present they are, how they don't have a filter. They'll just say what's on their mind. They'll tell you, like, you have pimples all over your face. Like, they'll just say the truth.
Totally. I was like, changing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was changing in my room, and one of the boys came up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna change." And I put my clothes on the bed, and he was like, "Are you gonna change to this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "But that's not even pretty." All right, whatever.
That's so funny. Right. Yeah,
they're the biggest.
So interesting. Yeah,
but they're the biggest triggers.
Yeah. And I think that's why they are the biggest teachers, though, because then when we get triggered, that's such a huge opportunity for us to dive into that piece of ours. Like, for example, in 2020, when Cardi B's song WAP came out, I thought that song was disgusting. I was so triggered by it. I was so triggered, so offended. I was like, what is she singing about? Macaroni in a pot? Ugh, like, now I can't eat pasta again. And I was just so grossed out by it. And that was my like opportunity to look into my own sexual trauma and be like, oh, like I have sexual trauma. I didn't know that. Like nothing majorly huge happened to me, but on the emotional side and you know, the things that I learned from early childhood growing up around the like Muslim morals of like, you only have sex if you're making a baby and that's it. And even like Christianity has always been so huge in communities I've lived in. Like I've been to church 5 times in my life, but just being in communities where almost everyone is Christian, like that purity culture still affects you, you know? And just from that, I had shame around being a woman, around being sensual, being sexual, because we are that naturally from childhood. I remember exploring my body as a kid and I felt really bad about it. And
guilty as charged.
Yeah. And it was very surprising to me that when I dove into the like pleasure work and sensuality work, it was very surprising to me that it also healed my inner child, because like memories would come up. Like if I would touch my body a certain way, I'd be like, oh, I did this before when I was like 7 years old, and then realizing like I was never a bad girl. I just was exploring my body and I enjoyed what I was feeling, and that's it. That's all that was happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And it takes me back to the repressing and the suppressing and the illusion behind a culture, because I also grew up in a very Catholic society and culture, and I also, you know, played with toys when I was very young. Like I rubbed myself against like a dog or something, I don't remember, but
poor dog.
It was hilarious. Like I felt there was so much like sexual energy wanting to move through, and then I kind of got into my mind that okay, I'm a sexual, I have like this super sexual drive. But then when I started growing up and I started exploring it outside of my toys and I started experiencing it like with partners and now with my husband, I feel like it's a natural balance where it's not like I'm craving it all the time, and I let that repression and suppression just like go, and now that energy just flows naturally without that, oh my God, I need to, because I had in my mind that, oh crap, I'm like this super sexual being, and what am I gonna do with it, but it wasn't the case. It's like we're all sexual. It just depends on how much you suppress it, that you have that craving, that need. And it happened a lot in the community too. Like the girls at 17 or 16, they were doing things that for me it was like, shame, no, God, oh my God. And I started moving through releasing that shame as I started like releasing myself from that culture and experiencing things for myself. That was key. Experiencing things for myself without the cultural voice over me was key for me to unplug from the shame and the guilt. And I feel like that's important in everything, like on Instagram, on the things you read, on the things you feed your mind and your system with. If it makes you feel shameful or that you're behind or worried or whatever, just unplug from that and connect back to your own experience. That will be the best guide for you.
So true. That's why I don't follow certain like celebrities, because I'm just like, they make me feel bad about myself.
Exactly.
It's very important to have that protection.
I even unfollow like a lot of the women I admire, and that they were mentors or like, and I tell them, sorry, I can't with you right now. There's some, I feel like I'm left behind on my creations or in my expression or whatever. So I'm just going to tune into my own path, because my path is amazing and I love it. I'm going to move with peace in it.
It's important to have that space for yourself. That's why like I've talked about this on my Instagram before. I think I have a post about it of like, here are some reasons why people could unfollow you, and then I put like disclaimer, this is not like a marketing post, this is a post of like being mindful. And like I don't remember all the things I said, but I remember one of the things was like, we all need to tune into our own voice. And even for me, like people that I admire, I would catch myself like talking like them or showing up like them, and I'm like, this isn't me. Let me like take a step back from her content and come back into my own resonance and show up in my authenticity. Because if we keep imitating, that's not the way to feel confident, to feel embodied, to feel like we belong. Like I feel like it's amazing how everything we're talking about in this conversation like all loops back into each other. It's like it all weaves into each other. It's like I feel like we're going in these beautiful spirals as we speak.
And I love that, because it's all the same. It's all the same.
I have some questions that I ask every one of my guests towards the end. I'm
excited.
I'm interested to see like what this will spark up, because sometimes these are like great conversation starters. So the first question is, what does self-love mean to you?
Self-love to me means respect for whatever is happening in the moment, whatever you're moving through, whatever you're feeling. I feel like self-love is respecting that everything is valid, that it all gets to belong, that it's all part of the process, that everything it's like the respect of whatever is moving through you, and to be compassionately and lovingly allowing of that truth to move through, and then take care of your space and your energy and your being in accordance to that respect.
Beautifully said. And as I asked you that question, I was like, in my mind, I'm like, put self-love in a box. Define what it is, even though it's everything.
Right.
So the next question is, what makes you feel the most grounded?
Ooh, singing.
Ooh,
Mm,
I love that.
yeah, yeah. I have my Shruti box, and I love tuning into my own voice before I either do podcast or courses or anything where I'm going to just express or share or something. There's just something. I feel like grounding for me, it's not just tuning into the core of who I am, but also creating space and allowing that divinity and that truth of who I am to come through, because that's like what takes me home. So I feel like singing is like the receiving of that essence, receiving it and expressing it. So singing.
I love that. I hope to one day feel that about singing, because one of the reasons why I'm called Self-Expressed Babe is because I've been on a journey with my voice, with expressing myself, and like singing for other people to hear that is not my husband, my brother, or my sister does not make me feel grounded at all.
That's all right. That's self-love. Respect that. Respect that in this moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, respect. Yeah. Yeah.
I've even been to karaoke where like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go out of my comfort zone, and I feel like I'm singing but no one can hear me because I'm so like shy about my voice. So I'm like, in my mind, it feels, it's out of my comfort zone. I'm like, all right, I celebrate that. Like no one heard me, but I showed up. I had the microphone, moving my mouth.
Yeah, baby steps. That's okay.
Yeah.
At least we try.
Yeah, true. Did you always have that grounding with singing, or is that something that you had to learn?
No, I always
That's
since
good.
I was little, I used to just play tapes and sit in my bed and just sing, and I always
that's so
it always brought to me.
That's awesome. And then my favorite question, what is your favorite part about being a woman?
There's so many. I love the variety in which I get to express myself as a woman. Like I love the possibility to play around with makeup and clothes and the way I can move my body. Like there's no shame in the game, like just try it all on. I love that ability and that possibility to merge and transform and shift, and that like you get to be everything. I love the possibility of expressing myself in many ways, and everything gets to be and be received, and it's just so fucking sexy.
And I never realized that until you said that like men don't get that same variety. Like if a man wants to wear a dress to work, everyone's gonna be like, you okay? Like they make it mean something when it's just fabric. It's just fabric. It's very interesting what we like make things mean. Again, goes back to why like being a human is so silly and hilarious.
It really is. But I love that we evolved and that we were able to heal that and allow and created that possibility for us to be able to wear pants and be able to dress however we want and be like, that's cool. That's cool. And still be sexy as fuck.
Wow, now it's like I feel like we're gonna lead a masculine awakening. This whole wave of like femininity, feminism, and feminine awakening, I feel like will be a great like mother for, oh my god, I have tingles.
Yes, you're calling it in.
That makes me so excited. Yeah, because like men don't get that same variety in like expressing themselves. Like it's not really welcomed for a man to call his best friend crying his eyes out because his girlfriend broke up with him. Like they're taught to hold everything in, and they need that surrender, that allowing, all the things that we've been talking about in this call. Oh.
And we also get to have this conversation where it's chaotic, but it all leads to the same center of love and belonging, because we have that ability to be all over the place but be centered at the core of heart. Right? I love it.
I love it. I could keep talking to you forever.
I could keep talking.
and we will once I stop the recording. But to close out the podcast space, where can people listening find out more about you, find out how to work with you, and all of those magical things?
I love that. Thank you for that opportunity. You can follow me on my Instagram. I am super active on my Instagram. It's at I am Beatriz Soto. You will find everything there on my link in bio. I never know how to say that. But in the link, you'll find my webpage. I have all the information there on how to work with me. But I would love for you, if you want to reach out to me, send me a DM, because I want us to talk. I want us to feel each other. So just hit me up on my IG and let's talk. I don't mind like lurkers, like lurking behind the scenes, but let's talk. I like that connection. So just send me a DM. Yeah, that's the best way.
Cool. So the link to Beatriz's Instagram will be in the show notes. I'm like, what is that called? Show notes. Or the caption if you're watching on YouTube. They're in the caption below. Like and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Openly Spoken. I know that there's an abundance of content online, so I really appreciate you giving me your ears today. If this episode shifted something for you, please share this with a friend or write us a podcast review if you're listening to this on iTunes so that more people can find this. If anything shifted for you from this episode that you want to have a conversation about, I would love to hear from you. Just send me a DM over on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and that is in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in,